Welcome to another episode of the Drew's News podcast and YouTube channel. I'm so excited, so hyped for today's guest. Today we have none other than Billy Floyd. He's a former morning news anchor turned podcaster, but he's cool, he's hip, and he knows all the broadcast rules. Well, most of them anyways. Welcome to the show today, Billy. I'm so grateful to have you.
Drew D's the Don, baby. You are my guy. Are you kidding me? What a privilege this is for me to be here on your show. You rocked it on episode 9 of Who's on the News. So I have to give back by coming on your show now because that's how it's done. Drew, I'm so stoked to be here. I'm ready for whatever you have my way. Let's do this thing.
Yep, let's jump right in. It should be a blast. So, what's one thing that all of our viewers and or listeners might not know about Billy?
Man, there's a lot of things, Drew. Oh my goodness. If we had hours on hours, I'd go on forever. But I know we are on a time crunch per usual. I know the deal here, Drew. I guess one thing that people might not know is I love to listen. Everybody has a story, everybody has a past. Everybody is right in this very moment for a reason. How on earth did they get here? What did they go through? And when you take the time to listen, look people in the eyes, Drew, look them in the eyes and hear them out. Ask them questions. Get to the bottom of why are you feeling this way? Why do you do what you do? Because when you do that, you can learn something brand new. And then that can spark a conversation where you chime in to share your stories, your identity, what you've put yourself through. And by doing that, everybody can grow. I love learning from you, and I hope you love learning from me. That's how I approach every single conversation, no matter what kind of status you have, what you look like, where you've been. I love to listen. I love to share. I love to connect. Communication is not key. Communication is everything, Drew.
Absolutely. One thing I love about you, Billy, is you have your journey is just quite unique in the sense that it's not something that you hear about every day. One of those being that you've now been turned a full time podcaster, right? With your own show. But prior to that, you were in the news industry. Did you ever picture yourself like did you ever picture this was a journey I would take? Like, hey, I'm in news, but now we're gonna go do a podcast.
Never. And that's the beauty of life, Drew. I'm a podcast host right now. And it'd be so easy to say, man, I wish after college I just started my own podcast and my own format and my own way. But how would have I have gotten here if I didn't go through my career in news? My career in news was the best experience of my life. And I love where I'm at right now. And it's because I went through what I went through in Casper, Wyoming as the morning news anchor, as well as Eugene, Oregon. In Casper, I was there for 2.5 years. In Oregon, I was there for 5 months. And the beauty of life is you can know what you want to be or what you want to do. And if you really think about it and you manifest it and you have that positive outlook, you're going to get there. But just because you're going to get there, that doesn't mean you have all of the answers figured out as to how you're going to get there, what zigzags you're going to have to go through, what kind of crushing moments of defeat are you going to have to come back from, how you're going to handle those highs. So, right now, sitting here talking on this podcast, Drew's News, never thought I'd be here, never thought I'd be hosting my own show. But what an honor it is to create these connections, share them with the world, knowing I know where I'm going to be one day, but I'm all in for the crazy spontaneity that comes with it, Drew. I'm down for it. book it. I don't want anything scheduled. I don't want anything planned. I want to go with the flow, ride the wave, baby. And we're going to the top. And it might take a while, but I'm with it. Whatever it takes, baby, at all costs.
Absolutely. Life is a journey, right? And I'm totally seeing that in my personal life and my professional life. Like, here soon, my listeners and viewers will be able to hear some news from me that I didn't expect, But life is all about a roller coaster. And we're just along for the ride. And it's like you said, like we might know what we want to do, but there's more than one way to get there. There's more than one way to do communications. There's more than one way to get out your message, and it's just interesting to see. If we were all the same, what a boring world it would be, right? So I'm very glad that we all have our own stories to tell. With that, what is one piece of advice that you would give to maybe someone who just launched their career within the news industry, or maybe someone who's listening to this episode and they want to be a journalist along the way?
You have to make sure you love it. You have to make sure you're willing to dedicate everything to this craft because, as you know, Drew, it's a cutthroat industry where you're working crazy hours. Your shift can change at the blink of an eye. You're covering stories all across your community: hard news, soft news, sports, weather, for crying out loud, whatever it might be. And yes, it is such an honor to be able to tell the stories to the people that you know living in your community. But at the same time, you have to be in love with it because it can be really challenging. Some days can be a dogfight. Some nights you're not sleeping well for anything. But at the end of the day, if you're committed to giving your all to the people that you know are around you, you're committed to being a team player for your newsroom. And most importantly, you're willing to conduct yourself in the best way possible so everybody is proud of you and you're proud of yourself. The only thing I will say is you have to know you're getting into a crazy life journey by going into the news. So you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready to move across the country, to potentially not talk to your friends or see your friends and family that often because you could be moving to a small market on the opposite side of the country. Who knows? But you have to be committed because once you do so, you know, I guess you can go back. I went back, but it's definitely a challenge. So I would totally, totally, totally say you got to love the news industry. You got to love the crazy, and you got to be down to fully be yourself so you can perform the best for your own good. And most importantly, the station who hired you.
Yep, you got to be ready to hit the ground running and be prepared. Be prepared for anything this crazy industry throws at you. But with anything, there's a lot of tough moments. But I'm all about that compliment sandwich, right? There's some tough moments, but there's some good too, right? So, take me back to one of your favorite memories from your time within the industry?
Man, so many great ones. I think my favorite memory was when I first started on the desk in Casper, Wyoming. I was an MMJ for the first 2 months. And I really didn't like it because I knew I wanted to be a television personality, but I didn't love reporting. I would never consider myself a journalist. And luckily, I became the morning news anchor after the former morning news anchor had quit. And this was the summer of 2018. So almost 3 years ago, which is crazy. And it was the end of August. Labor Day was rolling around, and the owner of the local hot dog place in town came on our morning show. And after I interviewed him on the show, he said, "Billy, you have to compete in the hot dog eating contest." We had talked about the contest on the show. He brought in a bunch of dogs. He brought in the championship belts. And I've never been in an eating contest before. I'm like, what do you, dude, no. Plus, the competition's on a Monday night, Labor Day at 7 o'clock. I go to bed at 6:30. No way am I doing this hot dog eating contest. What are you, crazy? But then I thought about it and I'm like, you got one life. Why would I say no? I'm in Casper, Wyoming. I moved all the way away from home. Why not spend one night staying up a little extra late, trying my best to eat as many hot dogs as humanly possible? And you know what? We can make a great story out of it. Get the sports guy there. We can have him tell the whole deal, and people will come within the community. I can build relationships with people there by saying, hey, yeah, I guess I'm the morning news anchor, and people are coming to see the sports team cover me eat these hot dogs. So I went to the event. There was 11 minutes on the clock. It was me and a couple of guys. There was a couple of gals there too. One of the gals was a professional competitive eater traveling the country on a little tour, Drew, to see if she could win this hot dog eating contest. She's been going to every single state doing food challenges, and I thought I had no chance of beating her. But you know what? I said, I'm going to pour as much water as possible on these hot dogs and try to beat her. And at the buzzer, I ate 13 hot dogs in 11 minutes, beat her by one dog at the final buzzer. Our sports guy, Carmine Jamay, who was on episode 2 of Who's on the News, told the story, did a stand up, got it right in my face, did interviews with me and Stephanie Wu, who was on the contest with me. And my goodness, it was amazing. Afterwards, everybody came up to me, took pictures with me. We put it out all over our platforms. Everybody knew about the contest. Everybody knew me as the champion. And it was just so fun because as a kid, or even as a college kid, or even when I first got there, never would I thought I'll be doing a contest of the hot dog eating variety right when I get there. But I said, you know what? Live a little bit, Billy boy. Go for it. And I became the hot dog eating champion of the state. And that was just such a time to be alive, Drew. You never know what you're going to get yourself into. You just got to go for it when opportunity arises.
What an incredible story. Maybe one day we can link up and I'll challenge you to a hot dog contest. What do you say?
Only if you want to get your butt kicked. I mean, that's up to you. If you are down to catch a fat L, Drew, I am so in.
Speaking of positive moments and positivity, Billy, you're a positive guy, right? Anyone with your situation thrown into a different career change all of a sudden the way that you were, it would have been very easy to get down, right? And be like, feel sorry for yourself. But you don't do that. You look at every day as a way to get better. Every day is a new challenge, and every day is a new day to make a difference in people's lives. So I gotta know, what's the secret spice? What's the secret ingredient? How do you remain so positive?
Discipline. Discipline, discipline, discipline. I'm very positive, Drew. Thank you so much for highlighting that about me. It is a fact. I approach every opportunity with the glass half full. I know I'm going to make the most of it. But when you bet on yourself, when you go down a path that only you can see, Drew, only I can see what's in front of me. Nobody else has any idea. A lot of people will say, Billy, you're freaking crazy. And I'll say, thank you so much for the fine compliment. I'm going to be on my way. Thank you again. But really, Drew, it's all about discipline, because when you chase your passion, you're not going to get the money right away. You're not going to get the listens or the views right away. You're not going to get the following right away. And you have to know that when you go down this road. Have to know that. So, with that being said, you have to know it's going to come. But the only way it's going to come is if you continue to go. So no matter who's listening, who's liking, who's telling you amazing job, who is being there for you when you need someone the most, it doesn't matter. You set your alarms every night to wake up, to work out, to do things that you scheduled, to write, to create, to find people, to interview people, to do whatever it takes to get to where you have to be. Now, with that, that means you're going to have to cut out some things, people in your life that have held you back, situations that you know you can't be a part of, doing other things that you know could be a waste of your time. You have to dedicate your time to what you know is going to take you to the top. Now, this grind could take months. It could take a year, two, three, four, five. I sound like LeBron when he had his Miami coming ceremony before he even played a game. Not one, not two, but no, seriously. You have to know you're going to go everywhere that you want to be and beyond. Your head hasn't even comprehended things that are going to happen to you, but that's only if you're disciplined enough to stick to what you believe in, regardless of what anybody says to you, Drew. So, yes, positive mindset, that is key for sure. But the number one thing you have to possess when you are on that path to greatness is discipline.
Wow. Mic drop. I could end the episode right there and be just fine. If you're not fired up after that, I don't know what's wrong with you. You need to wake up and do something different in your life because I'm ready to go, baby. With that, there's a lot of people, within our lives that have a strong influence on us. So, who's one person that you look up to and why?
This is the easiest question you could ever ask me, Drew. The answer to this question is my papu. Papu is Greek for grandfather. My grandfather, his name is Ernie Anastas. He was the lead evening anchor in New York City for basically my entire life. He is the number one influence, and in my opinion, the greatest human being ever born. Now, Drew, my father's in the news. My mother is in the news. They met on the desk in Kingston. My
Wow.
papu, his daughter, is my mother. So the whole lineage lines up for me being in the news. But I grew up never loving the news. I didn't care to be in the news. I grew up wanting to be famous. I wanted to be famous because that puts me in more positions to make an impact on more people. And that passion for wanting to be well known started when I was maybe 5 years old. I live in Albany, New York. My papu lives in Westchester. Westchester is about 45 minutes north of New York City. And in Albany, I'm about 2.5 hours north of Westchester. So I would go down to Westchester and visit my yaya and papu often. And when I was a kid, I would go with my papu to New York City, or we'd go to the mall in Westchester. And Drew, you have never seen anything like this. I would be walking with my grandfather, my papu, and everybody, and I mean everybody, would come up to him, shake his hand, say, hey, Ernie. And he would treat every single human, kid, adult, grandmother, grandfather, anybody, like they have been best friends their whole life. And I just sat there when I was 5, grew up, whatever, doesn't matter. And I was just in awe of, I want that. I want people to come up to me. I want to go up to anybody and be myself and smile and laugh and hug and share and kiss. I want to soak up all the best vibes. How do I do that? Well, my papu was a master of it. Yes, he was the lead anchor, the evening anchor in New York City, market number one. But he wasn't about that title. He was about who he was, his identity, how he impacted people. So when I watched him interact at such a young age, that made me have this fire in me that I got to do whatever it takes to get on television because I want to have that opportunity to make a difference in all these people's lives. Because, Drew, even if you saw Ernie Anastas on the street for 2 minutes and you talked about the weather, you're walking away like your life was made. And I want to have that impact on people because I want everybody to feel joy. I want everybody to enjoy this life. And he showed me from an early age, Billy, be yourself, treat everyone the way you want to be treated, the golden rule, look everyone in the eye, use that smile, and make everybody feel as important as you want everybody to make you feel. And I just loved it so much. And from the beginning of time, he has been my guy. So the message here is just treat others as if you want to be treated that way. And it's just been beautiful. That's my greatest influence.
Absolutely. And speaking of impact, you're well on your way. Your podcast is booming. Everyone's loving it. But with every journey, you have to make that decision to be like, oh, I'm gonna be a podcaster. I'm gonna do this. We have lots of thoughts and lots of dreams and lots of goals and aspirations that we might want to accomplish, and we think about them and we say them all the time. But it's another thing to actually put your money where your mouth is and do it. So is this the kind of response that you expected, and what do you hope for your podcast moving forward?
To be honest, I didn't have any expectations. When I thought about who's on the news, I thought I'm going to be doing what I love, which is sharing the stories of the most talented people across the country in hopes that their story can inspire not just young journalists, but anybody who's trying to go after what they love, as well as getting an inside scoop of what it's like to be in the news. I love connecting with others. And it's also a privilege that people in the news are all over the United States, this state, north, south, east, and west. So to connect with people from all over is just the greatest because who knows who's going to hear my name or who knows who's going to hear this episode with Drew Dees? Who knows who's going to get to the bottom of this? The beauty of who's on the news is that anybody anywhere can listen because it's told by newscasters all over. So I went into it thinking, I don't care who listens to it. I don't care how many views or listens I get. I want to have the best time and I want to highlight the people who deserve to be highlighted. People in the news, they grind so hard. You know how it is, covering stories left and right, putting on the makeup, getting all dapper, having the confidence and the charisma and the poise to go on air and deliver the stories and be so polished and fluent. It is such a challenging position. So people who watch from home know the stories that they're telling, but they don't know the stories behind the storyteller. Now, I'm not putting this out hoping, oh, yeah, everyone's going to listen to it. I'm just hoping that I can learn something. I'm hoping they can learn something. And anybody who wants to tune in, they're going to learn something great too. And I'm never going to let the numbers dictate my happiness. I'm never going to let the money I'm making off of it, which is literally nothing, dictate any type of joy. I'm just going to be so appreciative that for 20 to 30 minutes, I get to sit down with people I look up to and pick their brain, asking them, what the heck is it like to be in the news? Tell me your story. And for the future, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I've been doing Instagram lives now with more people in different states at different stations. And that's just another great way to have people incorporated to the Who's on the News brand. And I don't know what the 1 year plan is, or the 3 year plan, or the 5 year plan. All I know is that episode 13 is out right now. Episode 14 is coming next week. We got Instagram lives almost every day. And no matter what, we're never going to stop because this is a blast. I have the best producer in the game, Danny Ball. He makes the greatest graphics. He edits the episodes to make it nice and crisp. He's my right hand man. We get together every week. It wouldn't be anything without Danny Ball. Without Danny Ball, there's no such thing as Who's on the News. So you might hear my voice, you might hear me interviewing, you might hear me going crazy at the end and doing fun PA announcer intros to lead it off. But the trench work that goes on behind the scenes that Danny Ball does is one of a kind. He's the only person that could help me make this happen. And me and him were best of buds. We work so hard together. We go crazy. No matter what, we get everything done on time and we have the greatest time doing it. So the future, we know we're going to keep rolling. The present, we're going to stay so in the moment. And who knows what's going to happen? All I know is I'm going to keep meeting more fantastic people. I'm going to keep sharing their stories, and we're all going to learn from each other.
Meeting people and sharing stories. That's what it's all about, right? And I'm gonna be candid here, and my viewers and listeners know that if you know Drew, you know he's gonna call it like it is. The news industry, right? Oftentimes we get to tell stories and such, but we might not get to tell those stories that we want to tell, right? Just because that's not what's going on in the news today. And one thing that I've really loved and enjoyed during my time with this whole podcast thing is I get to, call the shots from editing to producing from beginning to end. I get to tell whatever story I want to tell. And you like basketball. You can shoot some hoops. So the ball is in our court with this podcast. Whereas with news, yeah, it's in our court to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, there's certain things that we have to cover no matter what's going on. But here, I can tell those stories that you might not otherwise see on the news just because that's not how it is in the world. So I really love this podcast thing. I hope you keep it up because I'm listening and watching every week. Who's on the news? Let's go, baby. Remember the name because it's only going to get bigger. So looking back, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently, maybe career-wise?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing, Drew. That's the beauty of life. When I was in college, I was a sports communications major and I really did nothing. Nothing. I was on a couple of the sports shows and I anchored and I talked some sports, and that's about it. And then it was the end of my first semester senior year. I'm looking at my life. I'm looking at what I've done. Billy, what'd you do in college? Well, you had a great time with your friends. You went out a lot. You partied. You played a lot of basketball. You did a lot of fun leisure activities. But did you do anything to really pursue a type of career? No. So I came to the realization, like, dude, you got to get your act together. You want to be on TV. You want to be on the news? Well, how else are you going to get on TV? How are you going to do it, Billy? There's only one way, because genetically cannot play professional sports, can't dance, can't sing, didn't live in Hollywood or New York City, so I never acted. I'm not beautiful enough to be a full-time model. How the heck do I get on television? Local news, the only way where you really can go by the book and get on air. So I grabbed my best friend, Sam Parties, and he was the videographer. I was the reporter, and we covered stories around campus, whether we went to the sandwich shop, whether we covered video games, basketball, whatever it was. And I made a reel out of stuff made on an iPhone and a couple of clips from the Marist Sports Show that was just utter gibberish. I applied to what felt like 200 jobs. Oh my gosh, you know the struggle. It's crazy. And I got one offer in Casper, Wyoming. And within 2 months, like I said, I got to become the morning news anchor. And with that show, I became the Today Show host of the state, where I rewrote the whole show, did it my way. There was no news director telling me anything. I called the shots. I had this organization on, this principal on, these kids on, these coaches on, these whoever on. I called every shot, had 4 live guests almost every single day, and everybody knew who I was. I knew almost everybody. I was so in the mix of this community where I built something real. I made actual connections. I learned from my humble beginnings that it's about love and being genuine. And it was the best 2.5 year experience of my life. And then after that, you know how TV works. I got to move up. I got to make more money. I got to go to a bigger market. And I got a job offer in Eugene, Oregon. So Casper, market 197, I went to Eugene, Market 117. Nothing crazy, but definitely a bigger jump. Definitely made a lot more money than what I did in Casper. And it was horrible. For 2 months, I was reading the news. No guests, no co anchor, one weather person. We had maybe two chats for 30 seconds a pop in a 2 hour news show. It was reading Biden, Trump, Corona, vaccine, back to school, murder, government, health, blah, negative, sheesh, faint, die. It was brutal, Drew. It was brutal. And in that moment, I said, I got to do something. I have to create my own type of content where I can emulate to some extent what I did in Wyoming, where I connected a community. I helped people share their story. I got people involved with others. What can I do? And I came up with Who's on the News, because what better way to share stories than having my own podcast where I call up some talented people like yourself to chop it up about their career. And it was the best idea I ever had. And my news director in Oregon didn't let me do it, said it was a conflict of interest. And I said, you know what? If you don't believe in me like I believe in me, off with you. I quit. I moved on. But it was those 5 months that I was in Oregon, coming off the greatest 2.5 year high, where I finally was alone. I had no friend group. Corona shut everything down. Oregon was a different breed of shutdown when coronavirus was at its peak. And I was like, what do? I can't be burnt out. I can't let Casper, Wyoming be the peak of my media career. I got to come back. And I came up with this platform. I found my guy to do it with me. So I would never say I regret anything, because if I didn't get into the news, I wouldn't have learned how to connect people, wouldn't have learned how to read a teleprompter, interview people, write, conduct stories, go out and do things on my own. So all those experiences, whether it was the best 2 years, 2.5 years of my life in Wyoming, mixed with the 5 miserable months in Oregon, all of that played into where I am today. You can connect the dots looking back, never going forward. And here I am right now with zero regrets. No such thing as a regret, because anything you say is a regret would be saying, oh, I didn't want to learn a valuable lesson, by saying, I regret that. Oh, so you don't want to have a valuable lesson learned? Well, that's crazy, because no such thing as regrets. You're here for a reason. You're here after what you've been through. So no regrets, Drew. I am pleased to be right where I am.
I agree with you on my end with that 110%, not 100, 110. And I believe that, like you said, we have many transferable skills. There's more than one way to do journalism. Without our journalism background, our podcast shows wouldn't be as clean, as concise, and we wouldn't know how to do those interviews. We wouldn't know how to write, and I don't know. I'm just thankful whether I end up in news or whether I do something else, I've still got that background, and I don't regret any of it at all. So, when we think about the broadcast industry, right, it's changing, especially right now during the times of COVID. People are working from home, yada yada. People are doing a lot of Zoom interviews, less face to face, in person. When you think about the broadcast industry in the next 5 to 10 years, you and I are doing these podcasts, and it's a different form of communication. And I feel in some ways it can be even more effective than news. Where do you hope to see the broadcast industry go?
To be honest, I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think it's going to change for the better. It's kind of just staying the same. I think podcasting, Instagram, YouTube, social media is what will always continue to evolve. So for me, I look at the news where they're telling the same stories over and over again. And yes, it's great for a community to tune into, but for my personal well being, that's not my cup of tea. I want to make direct impacts on people as often as humanly possible. And with the news, I don't think that can be the case because you're covering so many different stories that really don't touch the hearts of people. Sure, you have great feature stories and you're covering wonderful events. That's great. But you could only pump out a minute and 30 seconds of content related to that special heartwarming event where I can go on Instagram Live and talk to whoever for 45 minutes, sharing story on story on story for anybody to tune into. I can host WOTN and do a 20-minute conversation about social media or working in a small market or whatever it might be. And I have no limitation on how long it goes, what's being said. I can maybe even pump out a curse word if things get all emotional and fun. There's no laws and no restrictions. When I was working in news, Drew, the one thing I really didn't like is you have your listening bug, you have your delivery bug in your head, but then you have that one little gear that's the oh don't say that bug, the gear where you're trying to think of what to say, you have to say it correctly and smoothly, but also you have that little gear in your head saying easy, easy, don't, be careful, you might offend or you might say. But with podcasting, with social media, with my own brand, that stupid little bug, that gear that's thinking, don't say, it's gone. It's so gone. And I feel so comfortable getting on a mic knowing, yeah, I'm not going to say inappropriate matter because I have respect and I know what I'm doing in this industry, but I can say whatever I want. And I can be fully attentive to listening to questions, or in my part, for the most part, listening to the answers because I'm usually doing the interviewing. And that allows me to think of better questions as I'm listening. It allows me to deliver a better response after I've listened, because that stupid little side thought of, okay, be careful of what you're going to say, that is always going to remain in every news person's head. So when I'm not on the news, when I'm hosting my own podcast, doing my own interviews the way I want to do it, I can have free will to go nuts on it. And that's what I don't like about the news industry is you got to be so careful because it's on this platform of television. You got to be so careful. But with this, it's free will, baby. It's all you. And that's what I love about this evolving industry, social media and podcasting.
Well, I know I'm loving me some Billy, so keep it up, keep it up. So, final question for tonight, Billy. I ask everyone that comes on the show, and everyone that ever will come on the show, this question. It's kind of like my signature question. When you are long gone, okay, when Billy is no longer, and you've done all these cool things, what do you hope the Billy Floyd legacy will be?
I hope my legacy is that I inspired people to live the life they know they were destined to live. Because so many people, Drew, they're existing for 5 days of the week. And then for those glorious 2 days that most would call the weekend, they celebrate, they live, they go bonkers, and they have the best time. But then Sunday night rolls around. And I got to go to work Monday. Oh, it's Monday. Oh, it's only Tuesday. Oh, it's hump day. It's Thursday, almost Friday. It's Friday. Oh, that's disgusting. That is utter, utter grossness to me, Drew. And right now, I'm going against that. When I was in Oregon, I was existing 5 days and living 2 days. I wanted to get back to where I was in Wyoming, where every single day I'd look at my alarm clock at 1 in the morning and I would be in bed at 6 p.m. looking at that 1 a.m. alarm. Oh, baby, I just can't wait to close my eyes and wake up and go to work. I get to go to work. I get to do this. So I had to disconnect to reconnect. I disconnected. I took a step back and quit the news industry. And now I'm building something from the ground up. I'm doing it my way, the way my gut is telling me, the way that I know is right. And it's going to take a while, but I'm doing it. I have the discipline and the relentlessness to go about it. And most people would look at me and be like, this guy's a nut. Who does he think he is? How is he going to do this? And that's fine. But when I accomplish all that I know I accomplish, I want people to be like, holy cow, he did it. And I want you to say, whoa. And I want to say, yes, I did do it. And I've been trying to tell you as my process has been going because it's documented on my Instagram. It's documented at the end of every single podcast episode. I'm giving away the secrets to do it. I'm telling you how it's done. And just because I don't have the clout or the money or the fame right now doesn't mean I'm wrong because I'm fulfilled. I'm succeeding because I'm waking up every day, bursting out the door to hit the gym, to come right back and do whatever it takes to make this show and my brand the best it possibly can be. So, with that being said, Drew, I want people to remember what I did and I want everybody to realize, wow, I can do the same thing. If my gut is telling me to start my own bakery and leave this job, I got to do whatever it takes to get there. If I want to be the bat boy for the New York Yankees, I got to do whatever it takes to get there. If I want to be a firefighter, if I want to do this, if I want to run my own school, whatever it takes, you have to do it. Or you can live the settled life that's always going to be the same and you can be cool with that. And if that's you, if you're cool to settle and exist for 5 days and live for 2 days, power to you. Good luck. But for me, I don't care what anybody thinks. I want to do what I want to do and live the life I know I was supposed to live. So my legacy is I want to be a living piece of proof that you can do whatever the heck you want, no matter what.
Boom! Two takeaways there, folks. Number one, never settle, never quit, and do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. You heard it from Billy Floyd himself. Do what makes you happy. Folks, if you haven't already, you've got to check out Who's on the News podcast. And if you support me and you support us, you should have already subscribed already because that's what it's all about, supporting each other. But I promise you, Billy's got some fire guests for you. And the thing that I love about Billy's podcast show is not just about the guests. When that episode wraps up, Billy gives you some tips and tricks about life. It's just different. And that's what I love about Billy. Billy's different. He's a different breed. But I love him, and I can't wait to see where you go next, man. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been a blast.
Game recognized game, Drew. I love you too, man. You inspire me every single day. You trust yourself, you know your skills, you have your own show, you graduated college, you are the man. You are so smooth and you believe in yourself. And it is so evident that you know exactly what you're doing. And it's such an honor to connect with you. It's a privilege to be on your podcast after you dominated the mic on mine. And I just couldn't be more grateful, Drew. This relationship means the world to me. I love getting the chance to talk with you, share stories back and forth, learn from you like you get to learn from me, that back and forth relationship. It's just so cool to have these platforms where we can share our stories and create an everlasting bond because we know we're good people. We know we're both different. We respect each other's grind. So, with that being said, Drew, it was so incredible to be here with you. And I couldn't be a bigger cheerleader for you moving forward. You know what you're doing, you have the best chip on your shoulder. You are so confident. I love the way you move. This is something, man. I really couldn't be more appreciative. Thank you so much, Drew.
Thank you. It means the world to me. Three, two, one. And with that, you've just listened or watched another episode of the Drew's News Podcast. If you or someone you know has a testimony you'd like to share or a topic you would like to cover, you can email me at dsreports@gmail.com or follow me on all social media platforms at Drew D's Reports. And remember, as always, if you can dream it, you can drew it.